sometimes couples may how do you say, justify saying, no, but this is what the scripture said, you should do it. So they try to control the other in the name of Shastra, but actually it's their own sense gratification. Isn't that interesting?
Well, that's a huge problem. Because if you're going to be a husband or a wife, and you're going to be demanding things from your husband or wife, you better be a qualified husband or wife, so that you're qualified for your husband and wife to do those things you're asking. At the same time, humble and patient and respectful enough to know what they can and can't do. But I find it a huge problem when you have these ideals, but they're only on one side. You know, it's like having a guru that's demanding surrender, but he's one of these, famous Indian bogus gurus with his girlfriends and whatever else he's doing. We need to understand the needs of our spouses, not just be oblivious and say, this is what I need. That's all I care about is what I need. No. What do you need? That's what I care about. You care about your husband's needs, and then it works better.
So, if I understand this correctly, it boils down to individual capacity. So if a man and a woman come from healthy backgrounds and they have healthy experiences in relationships, and then the natural tendency is to want to fulfill the other person's need. But if somebody is very dysfunctional, unhealthy, and enters a marriage just waiting to, expecting to get, then it can become high maintenance and complicated. So I guess that's like the headline, the highlight. Develop your individual capacity for relationships before expecting that a marriage will work.
Yeah, and like we were saying before, if you have a history of bad relationships, some red flags should go off before you enter a new one. Like, okay, let's try to understand why these relationships failed. It could be your girlfriend, if you're a woman, it could be a girlfriend. If you're a man, it could be one of your friends. It could be with your parents, your siblings.
What triggers us, right?
I always thought just intuitively, if you're going to get married, talk to the siblings and say, did you guys get along? Talk to see how do they treat how does he treat his mother? How does she treat her father? Talk to her friends, talk to his friends, talk to the women in the ashram. Does everybody like her? Really good sign if everybody says, yeah, we love her, she loves everybody. Wow, what a great sign. Nobody can get along with her. So I'd be a little cautious.
Yeah. It's true. It's so amazing how much our parents affect us. We often leave home thinking, I'll never want to be like my mother or father. And then after many years, we end up looking at ourselves and we're doing exact same mistakes that they did.
Because it was programmed.
Yeah, it's like
programmed in there.
Yeah. Exactly, it's like a Windows program.
And sometimes you do the exact opposite because you hated it so much. So you're not acting according to what would be the most intelligent way in that particular situation. You're just either reacting, I don't want to be like my father, or end up unconsciously being like my father or mother. That's a very weak way of living. You want to create a situation that works. And I think it's really important for people when they're young and they're getting married to realize that things are, going to be molded in not exactly the way you want, and you're going to have to go with it. But the main goal is to make it work. And this is the person Krishna gave me. So now I have to, work with them. And unfortunately, nobody's perfect. So that's just a reality we all have to deal with. I thought she was perfect. She thought I was perfect. But as we get to know one another, we see, oh, actually, he's a human being. I thought he was a god. I thought she was a god. And now I see more of this human quality. And as funny as it sounds, sometimes it shocks them. I thought this person was the most special person I ever met. Isn't it? Prabhupada was very clear about marriage is not for sense gratification, it's for spiritual advancement. And so the romantic love, it's all about, I can get Krishna consciousness and sense gratification together, fulfill this need for love and affection. Of course, we all have a need, but, the Bollywood way of fulfilling it, it's very disruptive to a marriage. The other thing that's disruptive is people in the West, when they finally get married, they've had multiple boyfriends or girlfriends, so they're not used to sticking it out with one person. And so when you get married, you have to realize this is the end of the line. And you've had boyfriends and girlfriends since you were 13 years old in America, and that becomes a challenge because you're used to disposing of them when there's a problem. Oh, okay, we're going to break up. So there's no commitment. So that makes it really difficult also. Those two samskars are really, I think, the cause of a lot of breakups in marriage. I always say, if the combination is good for Krishna consciousness, this other stuff is not, it's not a big deal. If in the end of your life you're going back to Godhead, so what if this wasn't your perfect Romeo or Juliet? That's not the goal. We're trying to be getting out of the material world, not making a settlement here. So, and then you go to Sri Radhika Govind and she looks at your chart and goes, well, yeah, that's all you're getting in this life. So try your best, do what you can. You can go to another guy, but it'll be the same because that's your allotment. It's like go to this job, but your allotment is this amount of money. So, isn't it? This amount of happiness.
Actually, there's a class where Srila Prabhupada says all these material things, how much money, what kind of family life, those are all already material things. That's already predestined. What you have to focus is on how fast you'll make the progress in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. There's a purport in the Bhagavatam. It's either purport or lecture, I can't remember. Where Prabhupada says, you're destined to make a certain amount of money. It doesn't matter what job you work at, whatever it is, you'll make that amount of money. And he said, and even if you surrender to Krishna and give up everything to spread Krishna consciousness, still that allotment will be there. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes we see devotees and they're just preaching all the time. I'm like, well, how do you make a living? I don't know. It's just, when I need money, it shows up, somehow or other, So yeah, but that's their allotment. It just shows up. So you can't create more happiness, but the goal of a marriage is not to create sense gratification, to create more sense gratification. It's to create more bhakti. If you can come together, even if it's not the perfect ideal relationship, but it's perfect in creating bhakti, then what more could you ask for? Yeah, that's it. So you have to enter that you have to be married with that paradigm. Otherwise you come in, no, this is for sense gratification. You'll be obviously let down.